You lovely peeps know Ken Penders, right? One of the most polarising contributors to Archie Sonic's dork age. Well, Archie Comics must have had high hopes for this dude, as they let him both write and draw something that's 68 pages long. Yep, it's Oops All Penders. I'm sure this image has made its rounds around the net for a while. It's kind of infamous for how uncanny and low-key horrifying it is, and it certainly promises what unfortunate things await the reader. A couple of other way more professional reviewers have chewed out this trash, and that's all well and good. But I personally wish to review this special issue and put my 2 pennies in. Okay, backstory. Sonic Live was released in the innocent year of 1996, 1 year before the Endgame arc and original finale came out. It is notorious for being one of the most disliked things Archie Comics ever published, and believe me, that's saying something. Was it due to bad writing? Bad art? Or because they had child models of real people? And no, I'm not making that last one up. Yeah, Ken got his own son and niece to cameo in this comic book, and while the gesture is sweet, I can tell you the execution is far below expectations and the art direction in general becomes pretty divisive. Yeah, keep pulling off those kids' arms, Sonic. It was either this or incredibly poor reception that Sonic Live never got an official reprint, alongside other unfavourable specials. One day I'll get to them, but not now. You see what I'm dealing with now, right? Also worth mentioning, are you aware that this issue actually has 3 different stories? The cover certainly doesn't explain that. Poor Koslowski and Taylor's contributions really get left on the wayside. But fear not, I'll give them a good look as well. But before we get there, we have to get through the garbage cover story first. Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. In this video, we're looking at Sonic Live. Before going into this special properly, I just want to address how the cover looks. Or more specifically, how nightmarish Sonic is drawn here. The way his expression is cross-eyed, how he's grabbing hold of that kid to prevent him from escaping, the general uncomfortableness of this whole situation. Hope your parents aren't watching, because you're going into the void, kids. Yeah, this stiff directing and composition must have really been the best Photoshop the mid-90s could afford. It just all looks so unfortunate. Story 1, The Last Game Cartridge Hero, named after the Arnie movie of the same name. I rather liked that movie, being a subversion and self-aware spoof on action movies at the time. I can't say any of that carries over to its namesake though. Our villain is just laughing atop his weird mechanical castle. Is this a movie set? It looks like a movie set. Jesus, this doesn't even look like his polluted city at all. So, Robotnik yells out for our hero Sonic to come and face him in a climactic showdown, which of course he does, and it is with Sonic's first on-panel appearance that I see the first problem with this story. Ken's art is very stilted, preferring dramatic panels of dramaticness over simple things like character, expressions, or any heart at all. But I'll save the rest of my gripes for when I'm reviewing this damn thing. Oh, shock and horror! Princess Sally has been kidnapped and presumably lobotomized. Hypnotized? I don't even know what I'm looking at, but it leaves me shaken to my very soul. In this bizarre dramatization of their rivalry, Robotnik has Sonic completely surrounded by SWAT-bots, and just like that, our hero is seemingly vaporized by a barrage of lasers, leaving old Botnik to gloat about killing him. I'm sorry, but that panel of him laughing just looks like... Elsewhere, a pair of kids, Steve and Jesse, are playing a Sonic game that suddenly gets a game over. Oh, sorry. Ken's relatives get a game over by switching off their television with their sideways TV remote, and Sonic's creepy-ass hand reaches out for them while their mum demands that they get ready for school. Nice house, Penders. No, I'm actually serious. It makes me nostalgic for 90s photographs. It's such a time capsule. So Sonic, as it turns out, didn't get sent to the afterlife, but instead this weird digital limbo. I can see why this issue is considered non-canon now. And if you were wondering what Robotnik is doing during this time, he's yelling at a pile of dust on the ground, and placing Sally Acorn in her cell with the rest of the freedom fighters, who he apparently also kidnapped. Our hero, meanwhile, takes one look at a human child, and then he's like, "Don't change the channel, guys, I need your help." And the hedgy boy goes and grabs their arms and yanks them into the TV with them. The kids are perfectly cool with this, by the by, and aren't traumatized in the slightest by being warped into this bizarre in-between zone. The comics' words, not mine. After spouting dialogue that was clearly written by a middle-aged man, the new gang find their footing, somehow, and walk their way back to Mobius. Speaking of which, back there, Robotnik and Snively make music-related jokes at Sonic's supposed demise, even though the former is famously known to hate music and jokes, as that well-known meme has popularised. And the captured freedom fighters are thrust before the villain, and are forced to listen to his page-long rant about his plans. Same, Rota, same. Sally Acorn is trapped within the missile that's going to launch a bunch of killer satellites or whatever, but thankfully, Sonic is here, kids in tow, to put a stop to the villain's evil plan. But as it turns out, bringing along these two kids did nothing but give Dr. Robotnik 2 extra hostages to threaten the hero with. Also, I like this bit where Sonic dares him not to harm a single hair on their heads, and Robotnik is all like, "Well, I'm gonna harm the hair on your head!" And it's so unironically corny I can't believe it's played straight. This actually proves to be the villain's undoing, as this gets Sonic so mad that he headbutts him in the dick and breaks free from the Swapbot's clutches. It also gives him and the kids time to escape. Their poor arms must be really sore after he's been dragging them around at high speeds like that. While Sonic and the kids dink around in the rocket to prevent its launch, Dr. Robotnik and Snively both find another weird portal, which the heroes are also sucked into once they defuse the missile. Following another trippy page of weirdness, the heroes find themselves surrounded by Robotnik and his goons again, but there seems to be more to this situation than the exact same scenario a few minutes ago. It would appear that Robotnik has been here far longer than the heroes, and he has... oh god, how do I explain this? Recruited several versions of himself from other realities to come together and build a giant robot version of themselves. Jeez, I enjoy the concepts, but a lot of questions come to mind. Like, how did he achieve this? Who's this on this giant TV screen, if not him? Why does the giant robot have one big foot for a torso? Why is there drills outside my window? All of these questions and more remain unanswered in this 48-page special, and it bugs the heck out of me. So Sonic, Steve and Jesse are thrown into a prison cell, where they meet a pair of regular-looking humans, Jerry and Maury. A pair of Sega employees who are stated in-universe to be the creators of Sonic the Hedgehog, and the ones who started all this multi-dimensional portal nonsense. It's supposed to be a whole character meets his creator kind of thing, with them revealing that Sonic has been the basis of their video games after they secretly received transmissions from their prototype device, whatever the hell that means. Get this, they don't reference Sega or any of Sonic the Hedgehog's actual creators, which I'm sure is due to legal reasons, but instead of crediting esteemed artist and designer Naoto Oshima, Ken instead has these basic white dudes refer to him as one of their staff artists. I'm not going to go into how much that undermines their actual creators for the sake of simplicity, but I will say that's very dickish of Ken. Oh hey, Robotnik is here! Oh no, not really. It's just a lady in a suit, breaking the heroes out despite being equally confused about what's going on. Speaking of confusing things, the real Robotnik is busy being betrayed by his alternate counterparts. I'm not sure if every other version of himself from other dimensions is a robot, or if they're meant to be mechanical copies made by the dude that just happen to have his treacherous traits built into them. But Steve seems to indicate the latter, and that just comes off as Ken forgetting what the plot of this convoluted story even is. Choosing to be a hero above anything else, the Blue Blur decides to rescue his nemesis and his lackey, an action both of them do not appreciate because, durr, villains be bad. And the white dudes get Sonic to shut down the Swapbots with a giant control pad on the wall, which just so happens to look like a Mega Drive controller. One of the kids proves useful for like the one time in this whole story, and Steve knows a lot about inputting cheat codes. And ironically enough, the Sonic 1 level select code is used to shut down all of the Swapbots, and everybody is saved. And the Robotnik robots? What Robotnik robots? The way back to Mobius in Sonic's dimension only goes one way, so Sonic says goodbye to the kids he kidnapped, leaving us with this lovely and certainly not uncomfortable panel of the hero giving me the goddamn bedroom eyes, and all of the apparently fictional characters are teleported back. The freedom fighters all just happen to be freed from their containment. Robotnik and Snively bugger off in the background, and the two kids are shown to be in the real world, enjoying the new Sonic game. The end. What a story, Mark.
Yeah, you can say that again.
Story 2. The Substitute Freedom Fighters. It's in these pages let me see what the other freedom fighters were up to before they ended up imprisoned by Robotnik. It doesn't explain exactly how that happened. The heroes go out to deal with another SWATbot situation, and the blurb just tells us that they lost. However, with a threat from the villain reaching Knothole, a wandering Larry Lynx, making his return from that other story he appeared in, arrives in time to form a random tag team of his own to go rescue them. And who are those other team members? Well, that old bald eagle guy and those trainees from the Sally miniseries, of course, making their triumphant return. Hurrah! With the power of Larry Lynx's bad luck, their skills in combat and firearms, and picking door locks with spines, among other things, the freedom fighters are soon rescued from Robotropolis. Antoine in particular looks like he's suffered the most from being in prison, somehow more so than when he was in that actual prison in Endgame. The next day, presumably after the events of the last story, Larry is given a Medal of Honor, and he and the others are officially the Substitute Freedom Fighters. For real, it's not all that important on the long run, as these guys are never seen working together again, outside of one other special. So I guess not enough readers wrote letters about these minor characters. A shame, really. Story 3, Knuckles' Quest. Oh right, it's that ongoing story that I completely ignored in my last video due to it going nowhere. You know, actually, to make up for it, allow me to tell you guys the story in full. Fear not, it's incredibly short, all things considered. So, Knuckles, of all people, is tasked by Sally to go out and retrieve King Max's lost Sword of Acorns, this mystical weapon said to be magical and cleanse evil, etc, etc. On his journey that spans several issues, the Echidna comes across a surprisingly vast and varying set of villains, all incredibly one-dimensional and usually only appearing in one part of the story, before Knuckles or some third party beat them up. Knuckles finds himself at the beck and call of an enchantress, being saved by this holy paladin horse named Sir Connery, confronting leopard monsters from Final Fantasy, and finally locating the sword within a melting wizard dummy. At some point he also meets the cryptic Merlin Prower, making his first appearance in this very special. He's Tails' uncle, and he gives the Echidna unhelpful information, which I guess is foreshadowing to his dubious personality later on. The quest later comes to a close, and everyone is all giddy about it. Hip hip hooray indeed. That's it for the stories within this special issue, so I guess it's time for me to criticise the frick out of it. While the side stories were tiresomely mediocre at worst and slightly unappealing at best, their presence was not helped by this absolute unit of a cover story. Yeah, Sonic Live is not very good at all, and ironically enough, I think it's mostly due to the dumb plot and characters, not to mention the art style, all done by the same lad I've ranted about far too much already. Ken had his hands all over this, and yeah, predictably I hated it. The plot seems to be a heavily exaggerated form of the typical Sonic vs Robotnik plotline, but expanded to include not only a supposed real world with real people, but also a bizarre multiverse conquest that seemed to exist only to foreshadow future events, which we also never see because he never follows through with anything that's introduced in this issue. It's all par for the course with Ken, who enjoys his crazy sci-fi plots almost as much as he loves capitalizing certain words in speech bubbles. Seriously, who talks like this? I wouldn't talk if I were you. I'm all for the inclusion of multiverses in media, if it leads to potentially good stories anyway. But the one of Robotnik teaming up with his other selves only to have them betray him was a little excessive. If anything, it only made everything drag on for too long and took away much of the focus from the whole characters appearing in the real world setting. Another thing I feel that truly cemented Sonic Live as the least popular thing Archie Sonic ever made was how it didn't seem to know who it was aimed at. New fans would probably be confused by the whole multiverse angle and the bizarre story structure, While Sonic fans, those of the SatM cartoon at least, would ponder about what exactly Sonic's universe is meant to even be. It's not a part of the video games, as much as they keep stating in-universe, because everyone's distinctively like their cartoon counterparts. And it's not the cartoon, because nobody seems to be acting like their usual selves, and the backgrounds appear to be taken from a dark fantasy art book or something. Nothing in this story seems coherent even on a basic level. And that's just my problems with the story and setting. The art and characters are just badly done, in my opinion. I don't know where to begin, so I'll just start rapid-firing my dumb nerd gripes. Try not to get scolded by my tea, everyone. Sonic suffers from basic bitch syndrome and lacks any of his attitude from the cartoon or the games. Sally Acorn spends most of her time as a vegetable for nothing other than shock value. Dr. Robotnik has the exact same expression throughout the entire issue and is even more two-dimensional than a fridge magnet. Tails has some kind of ugly comb-over that's meant to be cute tufts of hair, but the artist apparently didn't know how hair works. Snively learnt how to be a statue and does nothing but stand around, except when Robotnik uses him as a shield. Funniest moment in the comic right there, actually. And Sonic's friends were stripped of any personality or awesome skills they've accumulated in like 40 plus issues at this point. Bunny would definitely be able to wipe the floor with these basic robots. I've seen it before, you can't tell me she can't do it right there. Like I said earlier, I won't harp on the kids too much. It's not their fault they were brought into this. I'm certain that they are or were fans of the material at some point, so who knows, this might have been wish fulfillment considering they even shared names. However, I don't know if it's Ken's inability to write kids well, but the characters based off of the two children were very flat. They added nothing to the story and were pretty much dragged around to wherever the plot needed them to be, and usually that was to be held hostage. Jesse had to be rescued at some point from the weird portals, which was pretty typical. But Steve was at least a little savvy of sci-fi tropes. Sorry, he was knowledgeable about space trek. Oh, Ken. Die. Though the lad was important in the finale, where his game knowledge allowed Sonic to save the day. But other than that, perhaps because I'm not that age anymore, I didn't feel as sucked into the world of the comics as Ken hoped I'd be. The art is overall very basic, and most characters have, like, only 2 expressions, but sometimes I saw a glimmer of inspiration in these comics panels. When not having a blank gaze that stares out into the distance like a dumbass, Sonic sometimes has the capacity to look shocked whenever crazy stuff happens around him. Ken went a bit overboard with the shadows, to the point where he gave all of the SWAT bots the exact same light source. But when Robotnik has ominous lighting for one panel, it's actually really effectual. In no other part of the comic does the lighting work to emphasize the gravity of the situation as this one panel does. The kids actually go through 2 different design changes throughout the comic. First, they're a kind of uncanny mix of live action and drawing. Then, when being teleported through a portal the second time, they look more akin to the other human characters, the 2 even lampshaded at one point. I kinda wish they kept it simple and just stuck to their second design because, my god, the Uncanny Valley is strong with these 2. Let me move on to the other stories, because they are thankfully way less uncomfortable and tiring to look at. The Substitute Freedom Fighters is mostly just boring. It's got little stakes or anything appealing about it, and again, they don't clarify what exactly caused the Freedom Fighters to be ultimately defeated. They could have easily had an ominous cameo of, I don't know, Metal Sonic defeating the heroes in a surprise appearance, or one of Kent Taylor's other characters, or a roboticized Bevalve. The pages dedicated to the Substitute Freedom Fighters sneaking into Robotropolis and barreling through guard bots was certainly interesting. I do still love Mawini's pencils, even when he's attached to the blandest of narratives. The Knuckles quest story was, as with the others of its kind, a minor Knuckles punch fest with a story that goes in circles. Spaziente's art and Peepoy's colouring was the most entertaining thing about it, but it was otherwise easily skippable. The Sword of Acorns doesn't need 7+ issues about it being lost, trust me. For the life of me, I can't imagine why anyone at Archie Comics would have approved this whole thing. Oh well, at least Ken achieved his dream of putting younger relatives in comic book form. Not the kind of ambitions I would have had, but hey, I'm not some middle-aged man making comics that would be outdated half a decade later, so whee! Sonic Live isn't very good. Really wouldn't recommend reading it or even touching the damn thing unless you want to look at it for a laugh. It receives the honour of this channel's first ever 1 out of 10. Phew, that's enough Sonic for a little while, methinks. For the next bunch of issues, I might go back to the world of Star Wars comics. There's a lot I want to talk about with those, let me tell you. Thank you ever so much for watching, if indeed you still are, and I'll see you in the next video.